Welcome to the Freedom to Thrive, a podcast that dives deep into the fight for abolition, reimagines justice, and explores the intersection of immigration and the criminal legal system, starting with this series that we call Crimmigration, brought to you by Freedom to Thrive, an organization here to challenge the status quo, dismantle oppressive systems, and build a world where our communities can truly thrive. Each episode in the series, we sit down with powerful voices from organizers to activists, community leaders, and allies who are leading the charge for change. We'll unpack the real impact of our current systems, discuss the importance of abolition, and share the tools, strategies needed to organize for a more just future. Whether you're new to this movement or a seasoned advocate, the space is for you. Our work is led and informed by people directly impacted by the immigration or prison system, who have been or have had loved ones deported or locked up. Their experiences with crimmigration is also impacted by the intersections of race, gender, housing, education, and labor. Join us to decriminalize, reparate, and liberate our communities. This is Freedom to Thrive. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is season 2 of the Freedom to Thrive podcast Crimmigration Series. We have some lovely new faces in the room with us today, but before we jump in, I wanted to do some intros. So again, my name is Kay, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the We Rise coordinator over at FTT. I'll pass it over to Edwin.
Thank you, Kay. Very lovely to see you. My name is Edwin Argueta. My pronouns are he, him. I live in Boston, and I'm a researcher with Freedom to Thrive. I'm super excited about the podcast today. And I'm going to pass it to Karim.
Wow, I get to go. My name is Karim. I'm the New York organizer for Freedom to Thrive. I'm an impacted individual, experienced my crimmigration and lengthy immigration stays for 5 years. And I'm just here to help the people fight and give as much legal information in the crimmigration corner as I possibly can. I'm going to pass it to C-Mob, DJ C-Mob.
What's cracking, everybody? I don't have my DJ glasses on today, so off with that. But yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is C-Mob Husseini. I'm the Portland organizer with Freedom to Thrive. My experiences have ranged from civil rights services and representation for immigrant refugee communities to leadership development, civic engagement workshops, boots on the ground as much as we can do around here. But yeah, and the Portland diaspora as we work with over here. We have 2 awesome guests over here representing some fantastic work. I want to be able to make sure that we can offer space for you too. We have Doris and Annie over here. Definitely let you guys start off with your own introductions. Annie?
Hi, yeah. Really honored to be here with you all. My name's Annie Gonzalez. I'm a volunteer with the Boston Immigration Justice Accompaniment Network, which is an all-volunteer network of folks who accompany people who are detained in ICE jail in New England.
Wonderful. Thank you for being on. And Doris?
Hi, everyone. My name is Doris Landaverde. I'm a TPS holder, immigrant from El Salvador, and I'm part of the Mass TPS committee. I am a coordinator, and I'm being voluntary since 2017. I'm a part of the National TPS Alliance, and I start organize a part-time with them, and I'm happy to be in here. And, we are just working to survive and save the program, the TPS program in this moment.
And this moment's a very heavy moment. Welcome aboard. Thank you for being here. Edwin is going to be hosting this main segment for us with our 2 esteemed guests over here, talking about the importance of grassroots community organizing during these times, very specific times. I'll let you take it away, Edwin.
Actually, my dear friend Kate, and I will be running this part of the program.
Let's go.
The podcast. So, why don't you get started? Okay, why did we think about having this conversation? I mean, a lot of people, have a lot of fear, because of what's been said during the presidential campaign. A lot of people have a lot of fear because what this current administration is doing in terms of massive deportations. This rhetoric about immigrants are criminal, and the countries where you come from are, excuse my language, shitholes. Right? I hope they don't ban this video. And why it's important to talk about community organizing. But before we do that, I think it's important to to learn about each one of you, right? Like, what do you do? What is your role with the organization you're with? Tell us about the organization you're with, and then we have a couple more questions that we're very curious about. So why don't we start with Ani?
Sure. So yeah, our network is an all volunteer network, and we're very decentralized. And so we kind of all take different roles when we can. We started this network back in 2017, and it was in response to the first Trump administration, and basically the energy that a lot of more progressive people had in Massachusetts who themselves were not impacted by immigration, such as myself, people who were citizens but really wanted to do something, felt more motivated after Trump got elected. And we were able to sort of connect some of those communities who didn't really have the relationships to be able to offer meaningful support with folks who were in immigration jail, who were organizing inside the detention at the time in the Suffolk County Jail in Boston. Now, they don't have a contract with ICE anymore, but at the time they were holding for immigration. So, that was kind of the beginning. And from that connection, we've been able to grow a network, connecting people kind of across different communities. So my primary role for the last several years, I've been focused on the inside-outside communication. We run a phone line that people can call from immigration jail that's answered by volunteers in English and Spanish with also Portuguese interpretation. And we also have a whole ton of volunteers who send letters into the jails as well, with outreach materials and just emotional support in a wide variety of languages. And we also do commissary donations to anybody who asks, anybody who calls us, who gets in touch with us. We do monthly donations to the commissary because we know how horrific it is for people who are inside, the food and the conditions, and how much it can help just to be able to buy a snack or something simple like that. So that's kind of the realm that I support. I try to support the volunteers doing those different things. I answer the phone sometimes. I try to orient new volunteers who are coming in, especially on the phone line. And I also support with we have like a support group that is mostly on WhatsApp, but we also meet on Zoom for people whose loved ones are currently in detention in immigration jail. And then I also have been supporting with a group that we got a grant for that is folks who've been on the surveillance or either are on it now or have been on it, the ankle shackles and the app, the SmartLink app, all the different kinds of surveillance that ICE puts people on. So that's a group that's trying to do more like raising awareness about that and trying to do some narrative interventions on the way people think about people who are in detention and who've been through, as you so aptly put it, the crimmigration system. So that's what I've been up to lately with this organization.
That's a hell of a lot of work. My goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's really important work, and I think that very seldom, we're so focused on, like, oh, let's pass legislation, to get comprehensive immigration reform. Oh, let's pass legislation for DACA, but we forget that there are people already in detention that need all this kind of support. So thank you for all you do. But I'm very curious about, Doris' story and the fact that, when they got together, and I'm sure she'll elaborate more, But I think the highlight for me is that they have been successful at fighting with the system when it comes to the TPS struggle. So, Doris, tell us about yourself, how you get started, and what do you do?
Thank you, Edwin. I started doing this in 2017, when the Trump administration attacked the TPS. Uh, I think it was hard time as a because I work as a custodial in Harvard University, and for me, found out like will be separate for my family. You know, to leave this country after, in that time was like 17, uh, almost 17 years to being here. My kids, uh, you know, was small, and I just worrying, I thinking what I had to do it. And I know here in Massachusetts is a lot of organizations, but when it's a lot of issues around, it's difficult to be focused in one issue. And like me, thousands of TPS holders got together and thinking like, we don't want to return back. You know what I mean? Like, we want to be here. If they send us back, at least we want to try, and we want to fight first. It's not like, I want to do my luggage. And this is how the National TPS Alliance start, like a group of TPS holders with the support Carecen Los Angeles, Endilon, and start, in particular myself, I start organize in my workplace. I always, um, I remember I met Jose Palma in my union and member of CIU 32BA, and they hold a, a conference about TPS, and I met with him, and I remember when people ask him how we can support the campaign, like TPS campaign, he say, "Oh, we had to organize the workplace because we need more people involved." And I remember I coming with that idea, and I start organizing Harvard University, my coworkers, and working together with other uh, union members. And we found out like the university have around, in that time, almost 200 TPS holder. And we start push the university to support TPS holder. uh, the in that time, the president sent two letters. She invite other, the Princeton University, and they write a letter to the president in that time. And this is how I start organizing. After I joined the Mass TPS committee as a voluntary. Since that, I be involved in be uh, you know the Mass TPS committee is part of the National TPS Alliance, and I doing like organized work in local, but also in national. And what we do is like, you know, organize TPS holders, train them, how we can be a leaders in our own campaign. Um, in these 4 years, we keep the, we say we keep like the light on, like, and now, you know, uh, we still here, and we believe we start the new book, like how we start in 2017. And it's crazy how fast things going on. And now the TPS is start uh, suffer consequence with the termination of Venezuela. This is a little bit who I am being doing and how I get involved in the National TPS Alliance. But like me is hundreds of people, like is lead the campaign, and all of us, we are volunteer, we are TPS holder, coming out, be a leaders for the needs, for keep our status in. And we hope more people do that. I know we even scare moments, most for undocumented, but we we had to educate and we had to organize, because it's the only way we can survive in this difficult time.
Wow, it's really impressive and beautiful, especially the fact that people from the outside would look at like the humbling position of being a custodian at a university to actually leading in these efforts. But I take it, also at the same time, it's it's not necessarily an assignment people jump into more than the necessity of having to do it, because there's not a lot of leadership values, particularly among DACA recipients and TPS holders, unless they're doing it themselves. Oftentimes movements are created from within. One of my questions for you is like, how how have you found yourself? How has the sense of leadership risen in you? Did it ever feel like a burden? And what is it in trying to you are a leader, and good leaders, and I can sense that good leaders also teach leadership. So how has this evolution been for you? How have you led, even in the process of like teaching people how to lead like you have?
It's a long story, and believe me, I'm a survivor of trauma. And I always said that I hope one time I will have a time to write a book for people are suffer for trauma, and how doing this job I can find healing. Believe me, when I start, was so hard for me. Anytime I share my story and the reason why I leave El Salvador, I'm crying, and now I just I just laughing when I share my story, and I'm not crying anymore. And this is means because I healing was a long process, because when I start, I was so emotional, and I found out like people hearing what I said and becoming represent even workers, be a leader in a work site, because I had to do it. And and I, and I think one thing's helped me a lot is like, okay, if I no fight, uh like I had to go back to El Salvador, and I don't know, it's kind of feel the love I have for my kids. I feel that is giving me the power to do this, because just imagine to be separate from them, and find out it's like a lot of people like me feel the same way. Uh, it's like say it's a long story, but I found out like even in dealing with like difficult things, something good coming in myself particularly, like healing trauma, uh, and now I feel like strong to say like in this moment I don't feel afraid. I just angry, thinking how people can vote for this guy and put immigrants in hard, because this is just seeing like the way people are suffering now. And only questions in myself is, we repeat for 4 years, like talking in like places like this, like invite people to do the right way, coming out, to vote. Like we can say people for who had to vote, but we believe it's people least bad than others, like, and I feel so angry. I don't feel afraid. I feel angry. And I still TPS holder. And it's in a moment that I feel that. I feel just uh disappointed how people put immigrants in this position. And I ask myself why.
I think that opens up to a great next question. I want to say thank you so much, both of y'all, for sharing what you already had shared so far. But I kind of heard y'all answer this already, but I still want to just specifically ask, why do you think, why is it important to organize right now?
And if I may chime in, I mean, I think that the question also comes from not the moment, but the lack of education that the average person in general has. Some people, when we talk to them, they're like, "Oh, let's wait for the next election," right? Or I don't know where to start. Or oh well, that's just how things are. Right now, there's thousands and thousands of more people that are gonna go into the deportation, and detention system. Thousands of people, are gonna continue to go in limbo because we don't know where this whole, uh, you know, where the program is going to end up. The TPS program is going to end up, and so yeah. Why? Thank you, Kay.
So I want to add to that question a little bit, and I don't want to confuse y'all or lose focus. So why is it important? But I kind of want, because I was incarcerated for the first Trump administration, so I was from the outside kind of looking in, and from my perspective, I saw a lot of unity amongst different causes, right? During that 4-year period, but being out for the Biden administration, I feel like that unity, everybody kind of splintered and went in their own different directions and had like a sense of safety. And what that did, especially for Annie, somebody who's a citizen and protected and being in a certain position, you have people who are citizens that are anti-immigrant, who are uninformed, as Edwin said, that may feel like, hey, you get commissary for immigrants, right? And you help them and feed them, but what about us? But there is also there is a disparity where commissary is 3 times the amount that it is for state prisoners and federal prisoners. So if y'all can answer like why it's important and can we find a place to unify again, but not just for 4 years, but long term, and sustain that between whether it's reform or abolition or any issue.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and I will say that that's something that our network really is experiencing right now, is another big influx of people who of people who are not themselves impacted but really want to help do something, and also of course of people who are impacted, who are scared, who have check-ins, who their loved one, their community member got detained, and that kind of thing. So we kind of have these moments of like upswell, and then other moments where it's like it's not on the headlines, it's not on people's minds if they're not experiencing it themselves, right? And so one reason I think it's so important to organize right in this moment, there's a lot of reasons. One is because it's time to absorb, and that's what we've been doing as much as possible these past few weeks, because immigration's been at the top of the headlines, getting all these media requests, and that means people are trying to help, and then we want to capture them while they're interested, while they're thinking about that. And not all of them will stay for the long haul, but those who do, who get connected and then build the relationships and then really get a deeper understanding, it's like we think of our work as doing a lot of things. It's direct support, right? Where you actually make someone's day just a little tiny bit better because they had a phone call, they had a little commissary, their loved one got a little support. But also, you're doing political education for everybody involved, whether it's people who are coming and they feel a lot of shame around the fact that their loved one had, a criminal charge, and that's they had a police interaction. That's how they got into ICE, and they feel shame. They don't want to talk about it. But then, when you're together on the Zoom and other people say that happened to my son, that happened to my husband, and then people start to lose some of the shame, and then we start to build more of that abolitionist framing. But also for volunteers who are coming in, like me, like a citizen who's not impacted, they're also getting that political education, because all of a sudden they're going to immigration court to witness as a volunteer, and they're like, this is messed up. They're taking the call from immigration jail. They're talking to people, hearing their stories, and they're like, this is horrible. And they might have had that idea in their head before, but it's different when you're there. Like, and same for me, because I always supported theoretically immigration justice and abolition and all that. But it's very different once you know a lot of people personally and you're talking to them. So I think one reason it's really important now is to capitalize on the moment, to try to pull people into relationship and into formation so that we can try to sustain more longer term power. Because exactly what you said, like Biden was supporting so many people. People were suffering so much under Biden. And yes, it is worse now with Trump. It is. And it was happening. I mean, the cruelty was happening every day under Biden. So yeah, I share that kind of frustration feeling that people kind of fizzle out. But I am hoping that we can get some more unity, because I think that's something that has really been lacking, and we're stronger together.
Doris?
Yeah, believe me, I was so frustrated. We have a hunger strike in December because we want to push Biden to leave more people protect under under TPS program, because we believe he can do it before. And was frustrated, like people not coming out to support, like, because it's Biden. And like Annie say, is if I think we need have more in 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 the two parties, because deportation, if we go back in the Obama, was a lot of people. And it's frustrating when you doing organize and you feel alone, because I know I feel like now, yeah, everybody say we want to support more unity, but if we can have this in the Biden administration and push more the Congress, because they have the power to pass a legislation. And I don't know, it's kind of frustrating, because we do a lot of things to push. And even they extend the TPS program for other countries, in Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala. They was like some hurricanes, and the TPS is to protect countries when they, or give TPS when countries are devastated, and they couldn't add people, in the program. They could offer TPS from Guatemala, Ecuador, and yeah, it's things like you get frustrated, because it's we had to have this unity. It's not just in one administration. I believe it's in both, because this is what we are now. Because people sometimes angry and take the decisions like they want to change. And I believe this is what happening with these elections.
Can I chime in and reiterate? And I want to thank Doris for sharing a little bit about her story. But I think it speaks to the fact that in the current discourse, and actually for the longest time, when you talked about immigration, it always was about the good immigrant, the bad immigrant. I mean, like conversation turned into that. And now it got worse. All criminals, all immigrants are criminals, right? And then we're going to send them back, to our country. But there was never a conversation about, well, why is it that people come to this country to begin with, right? There's all kinds of reasons. And just a basic, like, whatever we are, we want to give our families, the same thing that other people have, like food, on the table, clothes to wear, a house, good education, good health, etc. And the conversation is never about those things. The conversation is about we have to fear them or we're superior than them. And that really bothers me. And I appreciate, what we both said. On the one hand, look at my story, how I got here. This is why I'm fighting for my family, for my kids. And what Annie said, like people who are now part of the network, they now see how the system, how cruel the system is. These are human beings, and hopefully there's more and more. And I also appreciate the fact that you both talked about relationships. Organizing starts when you talk to somebody else, and then you become the collective, and then you do more and more with other people someplace else. And you become, this national vehicle that, for instance, like the vehicle that is part of it has become the National TPS Alliance. Similarly, in Massachusetts, this network of people that want to do, so they are doing stuff to try to support and fight back, at those who are already in the system. Okay, I know you have more questions.
But I feel like, do you have a question? Or if not?
Man, I always got questions. I got a lot to ask always. If you ask me to run my mouth, I'll run it. But actually, one of the things that I was pondering was, this is the second time we're going about it with this administration. The middle administration in between was not too much of a reprieve, more than just like kind of a pause, it felt like, on some things. But, with all that being prefaced, what has changed since the last time we had to challenge this administration? Like, what's the upgrade to the game so far, at least? What are the good things? Oh, you're on mute, Annie.
Sorry about that.
Got here for
it's a great question. It's a great question. And, for our network in particular, we formed during the first Trump administration. So we were just forming, figuring it out, making lots and lots and lots of mistakes, and we still make lots of mistakes, but now we exist and we have structure and we have our whole bond fund already set up, and all of that. And so we're kind of, a lot more ready to go. The other thing is, too, that like, oh shoot, I had a thought, it just flew right out of my brain. We're more ready to go. Well, I don't know, but I had a thought, and if I think of it again, I'll tell you.
Tell us about that bond fund, like the development and the solidification of that bond fund.
Yeah. So I mean, with everything with, we call our network Beyond, even though it doesn't really rhyme with the acronym, but just, I don't know, whatever.
J is silent.
The J is a Y and there's a D. I don't know where it came from. But with everything with Beyond, we just we really were just like making it up and figuring it out in relationship. And so at first, when we started connecting with folks, we'd hear, oh, they have a bond set, and if we pay it, we can get them out of jail. And at that time, early in the Trump administration, people were still getting set really low bonds, and people were still coming in over the border and making it up. And so there were multiple, young people coming who had just arrived, who for whatever reason got transferred up to New England, and who had like $1,500 bonds. And we were like, okay, well, we can fundraise that. And we would do it and we'd pay it. And then we're like, oh, another one. And then we were like, maybe we should make a whole fund for this. And like, we knew bond funds were a thing. So we just started one basically. And at first we had a fiscal sponsor. And we ended up becoming our own 501c3 to hold it. But I think because we're in Eastern Massachusetts, which is a relatively wealthy and somewhat progressive area, it's not been that hard to keep it funded, even though bonds are absurd. Like they've just gone up and up and up, and it's, harder and harder to get a bond set. So we don't know how useful it's going to continue to be as things develop, but we've been able to get those donations to roll in so that people, we can just pay the bond up to $7,500. If it's more than that, we kind of negotiate with the family, figuring out what we can do. And so, we've gotten a lot of people free from immigration jail just by paying those ransoms to the government,
ransom, right?
which we hate to do, but at the same time, got to get them out.
Oh my God, that will be a whole another episode. Who's making money of this?
I want to ask a question about the bond fund. Is this national, since they've basically shipped and spread everybody all over the nation?
Yeah, so the one we do is just for people who have a connection to Massachusetts, because just even though we're able to raise a good amount of money, it's not enough for the whole country, and it would just be zapped like that every second. A lot of other areas do have bond funds, but a lot don't. And then there are some national ones that are for specific groups of people. Like there was like a Muslim-oriented bond fund. There's like I think there's one that maybe is specifically for like trans folks. I'm not sure, but there's different ones for different groups of people. And there's a national network, the National Bail and Bond Fund Network, that tries to kind of help coordinate some of that. So sometimes we'll pay bonds for other parts of the country if we have a little more money in our account and there's a need somewhere else. But for the most part, we focus on just people who either are detained in Massachusetts or in New England, who are trying to come live in Massachusetts or who have been living in Massachusetts.
Are these bonds are set based on the municipalities, right? Then the dollar amounts, or are they like a federally set number that
they're set by judges? The minimum is immigration judges. They can be set by ICE, though that is somewhat less common. And the minimum is $1,500, but we never see that anymore. It's always like $5K, $7K, $10K, $15K, $20K.
God damn.
It's rough.
They hold the money. The government gets to hold that money, and
exactly right.
Like a bank, probably flip it a few times. And,
and there's predatory, there's a whole predatory industry of the loans people get to pay the bond. And the money is definitely an important conversation.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And
I
was going to say both your orgs started in 2017 or just about, right? During the previous Trump administration.
Yes. We start in 2017, and I think that good things happening is we still organize and we continue and have more leaders in being working, because since last year, since May, we start working to be prepared for the worst scenario for the elections. I think this was good for us because we prepare. It's like you are more strong, like it's no surprise. You wanna other scenario, but like it's help a lot to us to be prepared for this.
Muscle memory.
With that same question that we asked.
Wait. Seema, sorry. I think you had a question.
Oh, yeah. I was going to jump into the next question, which was just asking about like some of your organizing strategies. If you both feel free to share. Like, what are some of your organizing strategies?
Yeah, I think for us, we sometimes joke that our strategy is try everything. And we do try a little bit of everything, to be honest. I mean, our main goal, I would say our primary goal is getting people free, getting people out of immigration jail. So that's, less of a organizing strategy per se. It's more of a like direct aid or mutual aid, what you want to say. However, we've tried a lot of different strategies to push for various, whether it be legislation or the closure of a detention center of an ICE contract. And we have one. The biggest win we had was in Bristol County, which is a county in Massachusetts. That jail was holding for ICE for immigration. And the sheriff there, who'd been the long-term sheriff there, was like a mini Trump. He was just very blatant about it. And so, there was some amazing inside organizing happening there in the early part of the pandemic around some health and safety and pandemic related issues. And it so happened that one of the guys detained there was from Italy, and he had really fluent English, and, it kind of just the confluence of, sort of some of the privileges he had. He ended up, doing a lot of writing and whatever. So together with us on the outside and them on the inside, we did a lot of different kinds of advocacy around that, with protests, with media, with, different direct, like calling in, pushing, whatever. And eventually the Attorney General of the state did investigate it. And then it was recommended that the ICE contract be ended, which once the Biden administration came in, they did end it. And then the next election cycle, that sheriff was defeated, and he had not been defeated for a long time. And that guy who I mentioned, who was one of the inside organizers, he worked really hard on supporting the other sheriff's campaign. So we see that as a win, even though we don't want any sheriffs at all. But it was still a moment where we used a lot of different tactics in order to get that shut down.
Absolutely. Well, I think with what's being said, this is it. We can go on much longer. There's so much value in having the two of you on board, and definitely want to be able to try and maybe even arrange like another segment where we can continue some of these conversations. There's so much more to talk about over here. We got two more segments that we're going to run, and the following segments are, our next one is going to be by Karim, and we call it Crimmigration Corner, where Karim actually gets to highlight a case very relevant to our topics. And then after that, our wrap-up segment, which is what we call Bullshit of the Month, or it's typically called Of the Month. And this time we're talking about bullshit of the month. There's always something to deal with. There's something that wants to compete and fight and to be top of the list when it comes to what affects us in organizing positively or negatively. This time we're just not focusing on negatives. We're just focusing on the bullshit. So as many times as I can get away saying that. But yeah, so hopping into our Crimmigration Corner, one of the things about highlighting these cases, and I think it's fascinating, it's great to have you guys on with us on this panel to be able to also like pry into what Karim has to say. He's discussing Fourth Amendment based issues over here. I'm going to let Karim introduce his topic and kind of run through it, but would love to also hear from you guys as far as like, some of the thoughts on these cases that he, or this case that he brings up next, as well as our bullshit of the month, which is going to be kind of talking about the state of social media currently in this landscape and ways to organize offline. I think we're probably going to be about 5 minutes each on these. So if you guys still have time to hang around for each of these, is that cool? All right. Awesome. Let's go.
I'll try to make it real quick. I think I just heard you call it Crimmigration Corner, but
that could be a coined term, even though it's crimmigration, but Crimmigration Corner sounds pretty tasty.
So the Fourth Amendment and ICE arrest, the case I'm going to focus on is Morales versus Chadbourne is in the First Circuit. I chose that specifically out of all the Fourth Amendment immigration arrest cases because obviously y'all are in the First Circuit, y'all in Massachusetts, and that's where y'all reside. So, what is the Fourth Amendment and what does it protect us from? Which is the illegal search and seizure or arrest without probable cause. So, a lot of know your rights have been advising people who are now living in America that if ICE shows up to your house with a piece of paper that says warrant on it, that you should inspect it because it's usually not a judicial warrant and you don't have to let ICE inside your home. One of the reasons why you're able to do that, the main reason to most sanctuary cities is because there's a constitution and we have a thing called the Fourth Amendment that protects you from illegal search and seizure and wrongful arrest without probable cause. And ICE has to adhere to those things. Because immigration is civil, there is no judicial warrant that can be issued by a judge because immigration judges aren't, what do you call it? What is it? Statutory judges, right? I'm not getting the right term right now, but they can't issue a judicial warrant. It's only an administrative warrant. So it's a warrant for civil arrest. ICE has to establish probable cause. Probable cause cannot be race, nationality, or belief that you're illegally here in America based on your skin color or your accent. So when ICE arrests you or enters your home illegally, what lawyers haven't been saying is that you can actually sue. So these cases focus on folks suing ICE because they've been illegally arrested, a warrantless arrest, which boils down to kidnap, and they actually charge you a ransom to get out. So to your point, now, when you take these cases to court, there's already precedent in case law for tort claims, for Bivens claims. There are already these actions that you can take that can get you more protection. In turn, I believe if we take this approach, we'll get the opportunity to kind of back ICE up from making these illegal arrests. So I just wanted to add that piece. And in our newsletter, I'm going to write a lot more about the Fourth Amendment protections and the requirements that ICE has. They have stipulated in another case not to use certain databases which violate the Fourth Amendment, like the driver's license, the DMV, NCIS, different databases that they usually and normally use to issue warrants or detainers. And that case is called Gonzalez versus ICE. It started in 2010, but it's still being litigated today. And I'm going to pass it back to CMOP.
Not anything to do with our good Reverend Annie Gonzalez here. Oh, and we didn't highlight that earlier. You are a pastor. You're a reverend, right? The good Reverend on board over here with us. Yeah. So wait, just to clarify. So what you're saying is that you can actually sue ICE for warrantless entries?
Yes.
And that there's case precedents behind this.
There's case precedents in at least, I believe, 8 circuits. So wow. Chicago, New York, it actually has a very long history. In New York, it goes back to like the 1980s about how immigration can and when they can arrest you. So they can never get a judicial warrant unless there's a crime being committed. So, and probable cause for arrest has to be because there's an actual crime.
Right. So probable cause, pretextual stops and the pretext for initiating contact.
Yes.
It's incredible. What about going into like what you were mentioning, I think at one point in a discussion, I think when we were preparing for this, you were talking about, whether TROs are being filed. Can you define the TRO and what that is?
Okay. Well, so real quick, let me put the disclaimer. This is not legal advice, right? Please speak to an attorney. I'm not a lawyer.
There's an invisible banner over here.
There's an invisible banner that said this is not legal advice. So with TROs is a temporary restraining order. So I've been asking around for since the executive order for expedited removal was issued by Trump on January 20th. And I've basically been asking around to find out has any injunctive relief in the courts have been requested as to that order, because I see TROs for other executive orders that were issued, birthright citizenship, the stopping of the grants, but I haven't seen any in terms of immigration detention and mass deportation. So I've been asking, why hasn't there been one issued? There's also been historically, I know Make the Road New York did file a TRO back in 2019, which they did get some injunctive relief on, but I have seen nothing new. So we have a template for a TRO, and what that does is stops the action from taking place, puts an injunction from Trump and ICE continuing to do the ICE raids and arresting people based on not being here for more than 2 years or not being able to show some documentation. Even with the Lake and Raleigh Act, I haven't seen anybody file anything in court that will put a stop to those bills or executive orders.
That's another crazy one, the Lake and Riley Act.
Yeah.
That's just like all of our wonderful progressive Democrats that are in office that have voted for that piece of shit. That is insane.
Don't get me started. That's like 3 segments, 3 episodes at the very least. But I want to.
It's by design, right? If we had these 2 amazing movements start under the Trump administration, not that TPS wasn't being attacked previously, right? Or some countries didn't have it at all, or there wasn't a need for a bail fund when Obama deported 4 million people and had kids in cages. It's not that there wasn't those issues, is that a lot of times we turn that blind eye to the finesse, right? The smooth talkers, and they're not so brash. So we get into the place of being complacent. We don't fight as much. We're not aggressive because Trump is aggressive. We're aggressive, and now we have the tools from what we learned in the original 4 years of him being in office. So it's muscle memory right now. That's why everybody's all geared up.
All right. You also you sent me some information earlier on the Gonzalez case, Gonzalez v. ICE, and you highlighted that. So yeah, you touched on that a little bit. What was the main relevance? You said that case it started in 2011. It's still going right now.
Yes.
And that's one of the case highlights for this.
Yes, that's one of the case highlights for this. It's been up and down the Ninth Circuit. It started with U.S. citizens being issued detainers while they were arrested and placed in ICE detention and about to be deported, and they had to file because the databases that ICE uses are inconsistent. So one database might say this person is a U.S. citizen, but another one might say that he's removable. So they're inconsistent, and that can't be a reason for probable cause. So that case has been litigated. Injunctions have been issued about the use of the databases. ICE has made stipulations to not use the databases, allegedly. But what they have done is bought information from LexisNexis, right? So how they use data surveillance, huh?
You're muted, Seema.
I just did the Zoom thing. LexisNexis has all of us, huh?
Yeah. So I don't even really want to get into the data furnishers, but data furnishers are, a wide range of them for different reasons, and they furnish information, but anybody can buy public records. So public records are for sale, and some records come from the government. So ICE always has access to public records. The DMV is a government agency. ICE has that record. The DMV stipulates the difference between a citizen getting a license versus a non-citizen, so ICE can tell who is applying for a driver's license, even in these states where, you know, documented people are being issued. So now ICE knows, right? This is how they know where to go.
Yep.
So that's a major part. But the challenging of those things, even in the Gonzalez case, the judge said this is a national issue. This is not just because the PERC, which is I think a specific enforcement regional center or something like that, is in California, was the one that was challenged because they issued all these faulty detainers, faulty fraudulent detainers, and that was challenged by, I forget what's his first name, Gonzalez, and they made a class action. And I don't have the link here, but in the newsletter we'll have the link to that case so people can read over it and see if they fit in that class. It also addresses faulty detainers and NTAs and not having the dates and times, how it was issued. And you have to pursue your legal right, because when your rights are violated, there is some kind of recourse. And if we fail to take that that compensation, they're not paying for anything. We're leaving money on the table that they will spend to arrest people.
And I'm not sure if you guys got that, but there's a shameless plug in there for our newsletter. So this is the moment where it's like, this is that like and subscribe thing, right? Without actually having to say it, but there's a link right there for our link tree. Subscribe to our newsletter. We're in the middle of writing it right now. It's going to be some great stuff that we have coming up, especially for Black History Month. We're centering it around love. And movement building. So as always, so yeah.
There we go.
We're good.
I know that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
We're this is only our second season. We're still working the nuts and bolts.
We're learning. But I just wanted to say shamelessly that I'm going to share both the National TPS Alliance website on the screen and Beyond's website, so that you can learn more about the organization. And I'm hoping that you know, this is your house. You're more like you're feel free to come back. We'll probably bug you about coming back. But I know that CMEL has one more thing up his sleeve.
Yes. So again, you know, with our final segment, this is just a little bit of a rant, but Kay had geniusly kind of considered, you know, and suggested, yeah, you know, I think in light of what's currently happening right now, you know, Elon is a Nazi, allegedly. I don't know. We maybe not allegedly. Zuck is a fascist, and TikTok is now, thanks to Trump, back but wrapped around his finger, i.e., a censoring of Palestinian causes and issues now. So you know, in the landscape of social media, we find value in it when it comes to organizing, but Kay had an interesting point and an experience in talking about ways to organize offline. Holler, Kay.
Yeah, so what really inspired this was, well, it got me thinking was January 19th, the TikTok ban went into full effect. A lot of folks didn't really believe that it would happen until, you know, their TikToks, like they got kicked out of the app with a prompt. I can't remember the exact words, but it was basically just around the owner of TikTok, I guess communicating, naming that like, oh, they're working diligently with Trump to, I guess, you know, be able to figure out how Americans can have access again. So the next morning, the app was up and running, and users were met with a prompt thanking Trump, even though he was the original reason why the app went down in the first place. But
yeah, I think the original message was like, it was a little screen that pops up on the screen, and I got to read it. I got to read it out loud. When it wasn't available, it said, "Sorry, TikTok isn't available right now," in bold, and then beneath it, it said, "A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the U.S. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We're fortunate We're fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. And the app was inaccessible. My daughters were like, life was over.
I mean, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but then the next day, it said, oh, I don't even have that the next day one up. But yeah, when it got restored, it was basically just thanking Trump.
Yeah.
Suddenly, like Free Palestine wasn't available. It was censored for
a lot
days.
Echoing like what C-Mop was saying, a lot of like certain things you weren't able to search anymore. You weren't able to even look up even just like different news, like updates as far as things that were going on, because it was like it had a message or a prompt that wasn't allowing, like saying like it was, I forgot what the words were, but anyways, people like started being creative on TikTok though and utilizing like different phrases like cute winter boots to like communicate about ice sightings, and yeah, I think that opened up my mind around how folks can like organize like outside of like social media, because we recognize even in that moment that TikTok or even Instagram, any of these social medias aren't really the safest spaces to be organizing. It's a great community building tool, but it isn't the safest spaces. Also, the ban on TikTok is just delayed for 75 days. So even after that, we don't know what's going to happen. People who deleted the app aren't able to re-download it because of Android and Apple products like are following, I guess, the law, quote unquote. So yeah, I just really wanted to, I guess, open the conversation, like have a conversation with everybody about like a dialogue about how we can organize outside of social media. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you said organize outside of social media.
Yeah.
I just want to say that the cute boots aren't really new. In my campaign, we had those issues back in 2020 on TikTok. That's kind of
like cute boots.
Are you talking about winter boots? No, people would just use. I was saying that people were using that as like a tool to like communicate.
What I'm saying is, for my campaign, when we used TikTok to get me out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had to do was, because they had a ban on like pro-immigration posts, people had to do like a makeup tutorial. They had to write these different. So it's a constant thing where censorship is big on TikTok, even though it's from another country, allegedly, right? And it's always the censorship. But I also wanted to say that this is not the first time Trump does these types of things where he initiates a case or initiates a thing to leverage it into his own or somebody else that he knows. Because if people follow like Bitcoin and XRP, he initiated the whole XRP investigation, and now he has his own cryptocurrency in XRP cases. Oh yeah, we're gonna end that, and I'm doing a partnership, right? So this is kind of like a habit of his, right? And that's why he's probably linked up with the Musk and the other guys to kind of run this financial RICO indictment. But
no, I agree with that. I wasn't saying that like it was a new tactic. I was just naming.
I wasn't saying that it was new. I was just saying that we have to go back to it seems like everything we're doing is going back to 4 years ago, because we're literally in that time loop.
I want to be mindful of the time, because I know Doris and Annie have to go, and we're almost at the closing of the podcast. This was a really good conversation. I told you we're gonna have a really good conversation. Yes, but I miss if we don't ask Annie and Doris, number one, what message can you send to people who wanna support what you're doing and get active with you? Those people, Haitians, they have TPS, Nepalese, they have TPS, Sudanese, they have TPS, Ethiopians, they have TPS. So how do they connect with you? And what message do you have at this time before you, and how they can get in touch with you? I did not want to forget that.
and add, what are you taking back from this conversation to Bijan and TPS Alliance?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I think it's very important for people see us. It's very important in this time we can organize. I know it's scary, but we have to keep it strong to be safe. We have to build relationship and work together. Uh, to build a power and invite everyone, eh, like all people have a TPS, like um, Edwin say, Nepalese. We had to organize because I believe their extension will be expired soon, and we had to be ready, you know, because we don't know what it will happening. We don't know if they will take the same decision what they did with Venezuela, and it's very important to be organized. South Sudan, we had to organize. Afghanistan, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Haiti is the next countries that TPS will expire in the couple months. I invite to everyone to be organized, and we can save the program to be able to be here. And most important thing is to keep our families together. Like Edwin see that he put the website. You can find out there, and yeah, can connect with me. And here in Massachusetts, we have the mass committee, and we are do a lot of local, work. And yeah, just and thank you. I think it's a lot of things here. I hearing like many good things I will take with me.
Yeah, it was great to be here, feeling energized by this conversation. I guess I'm really heartened to remember that so many brilliant people are working on legal strategies. Karim, it was really inspiring to hear what you said about illegal entry with ICE. And for folks looking to connect with us, beyondbondboston.com, you can go to that website. It has different versions in different languages. You can select and to get support or to jump in and offer some support for folks who want to get mobilized and they're not directly impacted. I really encourage you to jump in, take a risk, and like do something that's outside your comfort zone, because that's what's going to really get you in relationship and get you in a new formation. For people who are feeling afraid and for themselves, just don't go it alone. Don't let the fear and the shame mean that you go it alone, because there's a lot of people here. And even if the worst does happen and you do end up detained and deported, even then, we're here to accompany you through that. And you don't need to go it alone.
Powerful words there. Don't go it alone. Thank you. Doris Landaverde, Reverend Annie Gonzalez, we appreciate you guys so much in the time you've given us today, and hearing us banter and rant a little bit as well. Good to share that space with you guys. Edwin, Karim, Kay.
Y'all doing amazing work. Both of you are doing really, really important work. And I hope other people can learn from this in their localities. And with that, I'm going to pass it to whoever wants to speak.
Just echoing C-Mob and Karim, like amazing work. And also thank you for sharing your stories. I really, really appreciate it. It was super insightful as a person who's like not directly impacted, but all these things are connected, right? So I just really appreciate you all coming into the space.
It's all the same oppressors.
Yeah.
The same thing. Thank you. And more importantly, I'm hoping that you guys are back in our future episode of Freedom to Thrive. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you, Dory, for your sharing your story and your courage.
Salute to the warrior.
That wraps up our show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for watching. Please, share out the link to your network and your folks in the podcast. Open to all the suggestions for the next episodes coming up. This has been the Freedom to Thrive podcast by Freedom to Thrive with Edwin, Kay, Crim, myself, and our two lovely guests over here. Again, thank you guys. End of episode.
Bye.
That's a wrap.
Bye.